Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. And it's Positively Ernie, and I love doing the program and bringing you all kinds of good, positive stories, particularly positive people who have a way of sharing something with us that we can all learn, grow, and become better people. And I've got a very special person today. Her name is Laura Begley Bloom, and she is fantastic. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ernie. It's great to see you.
You know, we go back a way, and Laura is an expert when it comes to travel, lifestyle. I mean, you're a great communicator. People should know that, you know, you were editor-in-chief of travel for Yahoo, which was a great, successful online travel service. New York Times, Forbes, Travel and Leisure. I mean, you've written so many articles, and you're still doing that. But, I mean, you know a lot about what's going on, and in particular travel. And a lot of people probably are saying, hey, you know what? I want to travel, but, you know, I'm just wondering these days, you know, where should I go? Where is it safe to go? There are a lot of questions about travel. I want to talk about that. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to get into some other things. Tell me about travel today. How has it changed over the past, 10 years?
Well, obviously, we had this little thing called a pandemic.
Yeah.
So that definitely changed travel because people weren't traveling for a few years. And so there really is this pent-up demand. So people put a lot of trips on hold. They didn't travel. And I think it's given people a sense of carpe diem. They want to just get out and do those trips that they've always dreamed about. They're not waiting any longer. And because they weren't traveling for a few years, they also saved up money. So people are taking pretty amazing bucket list trips, and just a lot of trips, because people just have realized the value of travel, that it really is life affirming.
It really is. I mean, when you think about it, whether it's for adults and particularly children, because we both have families, how great it is to learn about another culture, language, traditions. I mean, it expands the world in so many ways. I think travel is one of the best things to do. What's the hot place right now where people want to go? Is it the islands? Do they want to go to a Caribbean? It all depends on the season. But in general, where do they want to go?
Well, people want to go everywhere. Japan is really hot right now. In fact, the exchange rate is really in our favor for Japan. And so people have been traveling to Japan in droves. Another place that's hot, if you will, but very cold is Antarctica.
Yeah, I heard that.
And everybody is going to Antarctica.
And what is that? What's the drive?
Well, the drive is that there are a lot of these expedition ships that have launched that make it making it easier than ever to get to Antarctica. You can even fly to Antarctica and just zoom in and not have to deal with Drake's Passage. I've told you before about Lindblad Expeditions, one of my favorite companies. I went to the Galapagos with them a couple of years ago.
What a great trip, huh?
Yes, they have some expedition ships, but you can also fly to Antarctica with them. They have some special trips, and it's a very special place. But again, the world is our oyster. I just got back from Turks and Caicos.
Oh, I've been there. Love it.
It's wonderful. And there's so much expansion going on. I stayed at a great property called Beaches, which is an all-inclusive. I went with my family. We learned to scuba dive there at Beaches. And what's wonderful about when you stay there, if you're a scuba diver, it has some of the best scuba diving on the planet. And your dives are included in the rate. I think you can do 2 dives a day included in the rate.
Well, speaking of rates, everybody wonders, are prices better? Everything seems to be more expensive these days. So what about travel? Are there good deals out there? And how do you find them? How do you find them, Laura?
I mean, there are some deals, right? I was saying Japan is, there are some deals. Of course, it's going to cost you a little bit to get to Japan. That flight's not going to be cheap. But I think you just have to really be a savvy traveler and keep your eye on different websites. There's a site that I love called hopper.com, Hopper, like a rabbit hopping along. Hopper.
Yeah.
And they're really good. You can enter in flights that you're interested in, and they'll let you know when things are going to go on sale or the optimum time to purchase something. I think it's a really great site just in terms of navigating rates.
I like that. Okay, hopper.com. Travel, I mean, cruises are very popular. I still hear people talking about cruises,
yes,
and all kinds of cruises. The river cruises and the regular ones. Disney has a whole bunch of them. They are that popular, aren't they?
Cruises are wildly popular, and I think there's just a lot of value for your money with cruises. And I've talked about them before. I love MSC Cruises. They've been launching some new ships. They just launched a new ship here out of Miami. They're an Italian, actually. They're European, but an Italian family owns them. They're based out of Switzerland, but they're very glamorous, very European. Royal Caribbean keeps expanding. They just launched the largest cruise ship, on the planet, which is like a floating city.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, when our kids were younger, we had a couple of cruises, but they were smaller ships. Today, they are floating cities. How much bigger can they get, Laura?
Well, I think what's really interesting in cruises, and I love cruising. I think it's a great way to see the planet, to see a lot of places, and to do it easily, to be able to jet around.
Yeah, you don't have to jump around from room to room. And
exactly,
so forth,
and location to location.
Yeah.
You don't have to fly anywhere.
Right.
They'll just bring you to the next location. But I think what we're seeing a lot in the cruise industry is that ships are getting bigger and then they're getting smaller. There's another line I love called Windstar. Windstar. These are small sailing yachts with around 125, 130 people.
Ooh,
I did one of their trips through the Grenadines in the Caribbean. They are sailing to Iceland right now. And what's really great about, Iceland is very, very popular.
Yeah.
And what's wonderful about sailing around Iceland is that you actually do sail around it. It's an island.
Beautiful.
And so when you go with a company like Windstar, they'll take you around the island so you avoid the traffic.
Why does that sound expensive? I love what you're describing here.
It's not wildly expensive. I don't have the rates.
It sounds a little more private, to be on a smaller ship.
It is more private. The food is great. They have a partnership with the James Beard Foundation, so the food is top notch. When I went on Windstar, I went out with the chef and went shopping on the island of Grenada in the local market. That's the kind of thing you can do. And it's just, you get to know all of the passengers. Yeah. And I took my daughter. I think she was 5 or 4 at the time.
Good age.
And, they don't have kids clubs, but it's real travel. You really are experiencing the places, and the people were so wonderful. I love that. But again, there's nothing wrong too with those big mama jama ships. I've done them, and there's just anything that you can think of. There are so many activities.
When I'm thinking about travel, because we took a lot of trips with our family, especially when they were very young, and the memories that you build up from those trips, they last a lifetime. To this day, 10, 15 years later or more, you're talking about these trips that you took. So the memories that you can create as a family unit, they're great. You have a chance to communicate better. It's private. You're alone. It's a happy environment. I don't think you can say enough about travel.
And, I think we've talked about this before. For kids, travel is eye-opening and mind-opening. And there's actually research that shows that the more kids travel, the better they do at school. And the more successful they are in life. So there really is a long-term effect. And I just think it just opens your eyes to the rest of the planet. And I think when you get out there and you see people, you realize everybody on the globe, they're just like us.
You know what? We need more of that today, Laura.
We do.
We really do. We need more understanding. I did a story recently about, when you're bilingual, how important that is in terms of the way you think. You're more creative. You're more patient, you're more focused, and particularly for young people, based on what you were talking about travel, it's the same principle. They end up appreciating culture better. They think about other people in the world.
It's true.
And appreciating and wanting to communicate. We need that communication. So, all of these things kind of play in together. Let me ask you this, because, a lot of people watching, listening are saying, I want to travel, but if you've been watching the news lately, there's some hairy stories out there about what's going on in terms of safety. So because you're an expert and you do a lot of travel, Give us a little comment in terms of how you feel things are right now, in terms of comfort, safety, being able to travel.
Well, I do think that you need to be mindful wherever you're going. And one of the best resources that you can turn to is the State Department. And they have reports on countries. They keep information listed up to the minute, even regions within countries. So you really want to keep your eye on that. And, if there's some unrest somewhere, maybe you want to avoid it.
Yeah.
I also think it's really smart to get travel insurance in case anything goes wrong. And I have to say, I used to not be a person who got travel insurance.
Really?
And then in the last few years, I've started purchasing it because I realized that it's just a good thing to have. And it's not very much money.
It's a good point, because a lot of people have not been getting the insurance.
That's the thing. And I think you think, it's going to cost me, tons and tons of money. I mean, I went to Greece and I think my travel insurance was $60 for a 2-week trip. It's really not bad.
Yeah.
And so it just, it's an extra, just an extra kind of guarantee, and just puts your mind at ease. If you get hurt, if something goes wrong, if you need to get out of the country, they're going to help you out. And of course, there's all different kinds of insurance packages. There's a company I really love called Insure My Trip.
Insure My Trip.
InsureMyTrip.com. And what they are is they're sort of an aggregator. And so that's the company I always use. And so I call them up and they'll say, okay, well, you're going here. This is the brand that's going to give you the best package. And so I think that's really helpful. And
I'm glad you're feeding us all of these different websites and places to go, because that really is important. Because people will hear something in an interview and say, wait a minute, where do I go for that? So I'm glad you're doing that. Travel is great. We're talking about, getting on a plane or whatever it is, and just traveling on a ship. But some people think that staycations are still fun. So talk a little bit about your experiences with staycations, where to go, what to do, and the benefit of just hanging around.
Well, I think staycations, or even just looking in your own backyard.
Yeah.
In fact, I do a series for TripAdvisor. I don't know if you even know this. It's called The Weekender, and it comes out every other week and it comes out as a newsletter. It's a newsletter, and then it comes out on TripAdvisor.com.
Yeah.
I've got more info on my website, LauraBegleyBloom.com.
Okay, there
about
you go.
it.
Wait, give that address again.
LauraBegleyBloom.com.
Got it.
And so it's a lot of fun. It comes out every other week, and it's all about trips that are within a couple hours driving distance of New York, but also around the East Coast. Also staycations here in New York City for anybody who lives in New York City.
Sure.
There's a West Coast version too. I don't do the West Coast version, but I just think that it has really opened my eyes to just how many wonderful things are just right here that you don't have to travel far to find.
Right.
I truly believe that wherever I go, I can always find something that's great.
Well, I think you're right about that. And when you consider all the opportunities, you don't have to go that far. But even just the break, the old line, it's just a change of scenery. But it's true. You go somewhere and it's a different environment. And it could be a 1 day, 2 days, 3 day break or longer. And you just feel like you've just changed your view of whatever is on your mind. Yep. You have a fresh attitude, a fresh approach. I'm very high on that. I think it's great.
I agree with you. And it doesn't have to be fancy or complicated. You could go stay at a Marriott or a Holiday Inn that has a pool and just splash around. Speaking of companies that I like, there's another company I like called Outdoorsy.com.
Outdoorsy?
Outdoorsy. Outdoorsy.
Okay.
And what this is, it's a really interesting concept. It's sort of like an Airbnb, but for RVs. And you can rent other people's RVs.
I like that idea.
Right? So it's people.
I've always wanted to do that.
Right. It's people that aren't using, it's Airstreams RVs, motorhomes. It's people that aren't using it. And so then you can just, rent it for a weekend. It's not that expensive. It's a really great way to get out and have a fun vacation for not much money.
I like that. I've always thought of the idea of how great it would be to have that big van and just driving it and having your family on board. And there are places where you can stop and you can stay overnight.
Yep.
But, you have to follow some kind of a route.
Right. I mean, of course, there are routes that you can follow, and then you can do, I think they call it boondocking, where you can just kind of pull up anywhere. Interestingly, most Walmarts would let you park in their parking lot, which is a little fun fact of RVing. But I think it's a great way to get out and see the country.
So many great ideas. Laura, let me ask you. You certainly hear a lot about artificial intelligence
Yeah.
AI is everywhere, changing every industry, whatever it happens to be. So looking at the future of travel, how will AI impact that in terms of, how we plan our trips, some virtual trips? How about out of space? People are talking about, going into space, and those trips are available now, a little expensive, but will the future bring us a lot of extraordinary ways to travel and explore?
Well, I think AI, just from a reality point of view, it's a lot of companies are using it to power chatbots on their websites. I mean, I sometimes get a little frustrated with it because I want the real person to help me out.
Yeah, me
I just
too.
I don't want to be fed information that everybody else is getting, from AI. So I think there's I think it's making, like a lot of things with technology, it's making travel easier, but then, taking away some of the specialness, if that's a word, of it. Because I just think that you can't underestimate the power of humans, right? And a human helping you plan, a human helping give you information versus a bot. And, they're getting smarter and smarter, but, they're giving the same information to everybody. And, I have to say, I love using an old school travel agent, or travel advisor to help me plan a trip.
That was going to be one of my next questions. My dad had a travel business in Boston. And it was Greek travel, and he was pretty successful at it. And I remember going to the travel agency when I was a kid, and it was so much fun to watch him communicate with people, and they would be talking about the trip, and there would be a pamphlet and so forth, tangible things that you could hold in your hand and you could talk about. And are travel agents as popular?
I think it's sort of like the cruise lines, right? You've got the ships getting bigger, you've got the ships getting smaller. So with travelers, you've got some people want to automate everything and want technology to do everything, and they want to do it all themselves. And then you've got other people that realize the value of having somebody who can hold your hand.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize, same thing with sort of like with travel insurance. Everyone thinks it's expensive. Everyone thinks you're going to get ripped off by a travel agent. But because your dad did it, right?
Sure.
They actually are going to help get you deals. They're not getting paid by you most of the time. Like sometimes they'll have a little fee that they'll add on.
Yeah.
They're getting paid by the company to bring that company business.
Absolutely.
And so you might be booking on, one of the online travel agencies. They're getting paid by the hotel. So in the same way that, you're getting the same prices from a travel agent. When you're talking about booking cruises, it's a place where it's really hard to do on your own or to do online.
And it's really nice because it's personal. We used a travel agent when we were traveling to the south of France. And that person came with us, showed us different locations. I mean, it was worth every penny because, you had firsthand information about where we were, history, and then bringing it to the best restaurants that they could find, interesting places to go, makes a huge difference.
Well, and I think, too, when you go back to the topic of safety, it's really helpful because if you've got somebody who's looking out for you and if you need to get out of wherever you are, I mean, I went to Kenya with a company called Mikado Safaris. So it's a travel outfitter or operator. And one of the things that they did was when we were heading to the airport, they had a jump car behind our car just in case we broke down or something happened, just to make sure that everything went off seamlessly.
Well, we talk about safety.
Right?
Security.
And safety and security, you've got it right there.
Sure.
But I think, with travel agents, they're also looking out for you. If, you need to get out of somewhere for some reason, you've got somebody who's behind the scenes. If you're just a generic number or person, booking through an online agency, it might not be quite as easy. Again, I'm not downing the online travel companies because they certainly are helpful. I use them myself, but I think there's a big value to using an agent, especially if you're planning a more complicated trip.
Laura, you are a wealth of knowledge when we talk about travel, but also lifestyle. You're a lifestyle reporter. And just to open it up just a little bit for a while, in terms of lifestyle, what's changed? What kind of new trends should we be looking at in terms of the way people want to enjoy life It may not necessarily be travel. It could be other experiences. Talk about that a little bit. Give us an overview.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You know, I think it kind of goes, I think it sort of dovetails with what I was talking about in terms of travel. I think people just want to enjoy life. You know, there's just this sort of excitement to be able to go to a restaurant these days and, you know, have a wonderful meal. To go, you know, shopping, you know, and again, I feel like there's that sort of yin and yang that's happening in our life. Like we've got, you know, Amazon.com and you can buy everything you need there, or you can buy things online. It's kind of a pain if you then have to, it doesn't fit, you have to return it. Again, there's a value to going to a place and shopping in person. But I do think that I think that this sort of feeling that everybody has is just to really enjoy life and to not put off those things that you've been wanting to do.
Yeah, I'm also hearing a lot of people doing something that we did not too long ago, and that is bringing your family together, family reunions.
Yes.
I had a reunion of about 80, 90 people from my family. We all got together, and they came from different parts of the country. One time only, but we had a nice thing printed up with every name and all of the kids and the parents and the grandparents and so forth. And that was a wonderful memory. And I think a lot of people are thinking a lot about nesting these days as well. Travel is great, but also utilizing your home as the center of your life and making memories there with your family and friends.
I think you're right. I could not agree more. I think it is important. And to spend time with those friends and get the friends together.
You know, Laura, I mentioned my dad, a little history, you know, of my father being in the travel business. In the world of journalism, I wanted to bring this up because you have some history. Because your great-great-grandfather, I understand, was a Civil War correspondent for the Chicago Tribune.
Yes, he was.
Tell us about that. I like that story.
We found this out sort of later, and it was so exciting. His name was Albert Bodman, and he was a reporter for the Chicago Tribune during the Civil War. And he's been, you know, my dad was a huge history buff, and so he had done tons of research into him. And you know, he's mentioned in some books. There's articles that you can find.
Really?
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
That must make you really feel proud.
It does. And there's a statue, and now I don't press me as to tell you where, but I've got it written down somewhere there's a statue somewhere that was dedicated to the reporters of the Civil War, and his name is on it.
His name is there?
Yeah, which I need to do. That's on my bucket list to go check that out someday.
How great is that? I love talking with you. You know, when I have people on the show, you know, we talk about a particular subject and we bounce around a little bit. And I always ask people, you know, my guests, a couple of questions that you can just pass along. As a parent, you know, as a person who's been involved in family life and understanding what it's like to raise children, if you had some advice for a newborn baby from your experience in life, it doesn't have to be about travel, it could be about anything, to say, you know what, I'd like to impart this information to a newborn today that they can use perhaps some time in their life. What little nugget of wisdom do you have that you want to share with a little baby?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, my advice would be just to do what you love and to follow your heart always. And I'll never forget when I was in college and I was thinking about doing journalism, and a friend of mine said to me, "Why would you do that? You know, journalists don't make any money." And she wanted to be a lawyer. And she said, "I'm going to become a lawyer because I want to live the lifestyle that I've become accustomed to." Her dad was a lawyer, and she became a lawyer. And I'll never forget then later on her saying, "Wow, I really don't like this. And I only did it for the money. And I wish I would have followed my heart and did something I love." And I do feel that way. And I think the money will follow if you're doing something that you love and that you're passionate about. So that's my advice.
There's no comparison to it. I mean, you really have to feel that you're happy, you know, with what you're doing, that you have a natural desire. There's a great line that I use often: don't strive for success, strive for significance.
Oh, I like that.
Do something, you know, that makes you feel like I'm trying to make the world a better place. You can still be good at what you do and be successful, but strive for significance, something that has purpose and value. Did you enjoy this?
That's good. That's a good. I'm going to use that quote. I'm stealing that one.
All right. So LauraBegleyBloom.com. People can go to that site, get a lot of information, and you can share whatever you want. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ernie.
Happy travels.
Happy travels
All
to
good
you.
things to you and your family.
Thank you for having me.
What a great guest. I really loved having you here. Come back again.
I will.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.